allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which is stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
I will now call the roll for commission members. After roll call, I'll entertain a motion to approve an excused absence. Any not present. Calling like chairman here, Jimmy Ruth Evans,
Here.
Melanie Johnson,
Here.
Ken Jordan. Barrett Klein here, Wendy Payne.
Here.
Joe Leathers. Here. Tommy Oates. Here. Joe Osterkamp. Here. DJ Klein. Here. Benjamin Turner. Here. Johnny Trotter. Here. Dr. Keenan Sturgis. Here. Okay, do I have a motion, to approve the absence of?
I believe that we approve have in Georgia.
Very good. Second, we have a motion and a second to approve Ken Jordan's absence. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Those by nay, and all, the motion passes unanimously. So next item on the agenda is closed executive session to receive legal advice, discuss pending or contemplated litigation and settlement offers as permitted by section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code. Closed executive session to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of specific commission employees as permitted by section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code. So we will now go into executive session and I will call the roll. I'm not going to call it again because I know who's here and that's.
And then for members of the public, we will not reconvene before 9 a.m.
Yeah, we'll be back not before 9 o'clock. IT says we're ready to go and I will brag on them. We have the greatest IT folks in the world and that had to be a very complicated problem. I want to welcome everybody. It's great to see a full house here and it's fun having all of y'all and getting to see all of you and getting to speak with you and visit with you. So we appreciate your attendance. There will be no action taken on anything that was done in executive session, and the next agenda item will be approval of the minutes of the 424th meeting on May the 6th.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes of the 424th commission meeting.
And a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And all opposed by no. That motion passes unanimously, and I don't think I'm going to hit the gavel because that seemed to have something to do with what happened. The next item will be a report of the executive director, Dr. Venus.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. My pleasure to present my report to you this morning. Start off with agency operations and affairs. It is my pleasure to report that we have 201.5 field positions as of August 18th, 2025. We'll bring you up to speed on the veterinary medical education loan repayment programs. The Rural Veterinary Incentive Program is a state-funded program that provides educational loan repayment assistance or payment of tuition and fees of up to $180,000 to eligible veterinarians and veterinary medical students that demonstrate a commitment to working in designated rural Texas counties. The program offers up to $45,000 for each year of full-time veterinary service in rural communities in need of a veterinarian. I'm pleased to announce that funding was appropriated in the amount of $2.5 million for fiscal year 2025 and another $2.5 million for fiscal year 2027 by the 89th legislature. The RVIP committee is scheduled to meet on September 3rd to begin another cycle. So pleasantly good news there as far as the state funded program goes. As far as the federal funded program, the Veterinary Medical Loan Repayment Program, the VMLRP, provides student loan debt relief for veterinarians that serve 3 years in veterinary shortage areas. General updates on that program include the award amount has been increased from $25,000 to $40,000 per year of student loan debt for veterinarians that commit to working in designated veterinary shortage areas. An additional payment of $15,600 per year will be awarded for tax liability is now included in that payment. So a total maximum award of $166,800 for 3 years is what is potentially the amount that can be awarded. For the current cycle in 2025, the Texas Animal Health Commission submitted applications for a maximum amount of 8 shortage areas. Proud to announce that we were awarded those 8 shortage areas, but I wanted to let you know that that program has been paused for now. Currently, all USDA, National Institute of Food and Agriculture funding opportunities are under review. So there is a listening session later on this morning with the United States Department of Agriculture, APHIS Veterinary Services, concerning the veterinary shortage in rural areas. So we'll have staff attend those meetings later this morning. So to bring you up to speed on the prenamectin cattle fever tick treatment field trial, as you know, we've mentioned that before. The trial was started on the Laguna Atascosa National Wildlife Refuge. The cattle that we had been loaned the use of to start this trial became increasingly difficult to pin, inspect, and treat as needed. We decided to terminate the trial at day 112. We moved the project to the Moorfield Air Base ARS Research Station and completed that trial on April the 17th of this year. The data analysis has been completed, and the first draft of the research manuscript has been completed as well and is being reviewed by the authors for edits. The preliminary findings were presented at the 67th Annual Livestock Insect Workers Conference in Cody, Wyoming earlier this summer. The principal investigators have confidence in the 56-day treatment protocol findings, but the 84-day treatment protocol findings needed additional information to meet the original objectives of the research. So that is my understanding that the USDA ARS will continue to look at this 84-day treatment protocol. The residue project planning with the Texas A&M Animal Science Department has been completed and approved by all investigators, and it is projected to begin once the contract is approved, hopefully by the commission later on this morning in the meeting. The second trial at the Laguna Atascosa National Wildlife Refuge is projected to begin in the spring of 2026. Happy to announce that the LBB has added $30,000, which we asked for in an exceptional item, to the Texas Animal Health Commission base budget for the next biennium to complete all stages of this research trial. We've mentioned now for national updates, we've mentioned before the nematode solution that was going to be used in a project to treat the Nalgai antelope in the cattle fever tick eradication areas. That project has been paused at this time. That solution is used predominantly in the Florida citrus industry, and the Florida industry does not have a need for that product to be produced at this time, so the company will not produce the product, nor will they supply us with the nematode solution to be used in our efforts. So just to update you on that. The Rio Bravo Buffer Zone was a pilot project that was put in place by the USDA, APHIS, Seneca, and the Mexican states of Tamaulipas and Coahuila. They worked cooperatively to establish a cattle fever tick buffer zone in the areas along the Rio Grande River, mirroring that the permanent quarantine zone on the Texas side. The USDA has allocated $150,000 to contribute to the project. In the second phase, they've asked that there be an increase in wildlife treatment and surveillance. So as other federal programs are going, the the funding for this project was paused as federal government stopped payments for international agreements back in February of this year. It has been made known that the funding has been reinstated and the work has resumed on the Rio Bravo buffer zone as of June the 1st. To update you on the status of the Asian longhorn tick, to date, the Asian longhorn tick has been discovered in 23 states and Washington, D.C. Most recently, in the early part of June, it was discovered in a beef cattle herd in southeast Iowa. It has also been discovered in southwest Michigan in a state park there by some university researchers. So affected states continue to use producer education and outreach to mitigate the risk of Asian longhorn tick introductions. Fortunately, the 89th legislature funded the Texas Animal Health Commission exceptional item request for the next biennium to produce additional equipment and personnel to increase foreign pest surveillance more broadly throughout Texas by establishing a Texas Animal Health Commission ectoparasite field identification laboratory. This laboratory will help in our efforts, our daily efforts, as we're involved with the cattle fever tick eradication program. It'll also help identify the Asian longhorn tick in a timely fashion and also help in our efforts to prevent a new world screwworm infestation here in Texas and the United States. As talking about New World screwworm, to give you some updated information on what's going on in Mexico. On August the 16th, Seneca reported that there are 5,119 accumulated cases of New World screwworms. The 6.2 increase in the total cases since the August 9th update marks a slight uptick in case growth. This is increased over the 5.8% that was reported on August the 9th. And then it is significantly lower than the 12% case growth rate that was reported prior to July the 23rd. To date, the northernmost detection remains the Veracruz case reported on July the 7th. Seneca confirmed that case is now inactive as of July the 19th. The most northwestern active cases are within the current sterile insect dispersal area. And as far as surveillance goes, Seneca has reported that they've distributed nearly 700 New World screwworm specific traps and lures, with 80% of the traps being in high-risk areas such as feedlots, livestock holding areas, and slaughterhouses. The remaining traps are in southern Mexico, just north of the current sterile fly dispersal areas. To bring you up to speed on what's been going on with the USDA and their response to the New World screwworm, as you know, the southern border was reopened to cattle movement, equine movement as well. February the 1st of this year, on May the 11th, Secretary Rollins announced that the southern border ports were going to be closed again. This due to New World screwworm being found in the states of Veracruz and Oaxaca. Also at that time, it was let be known that Mexico had not been a willing participant in the aerial dispersal of the New World screwworm fly. So Secretary Rollins thought it would be best to close the southern border on May 11th. On May the 28th, Secretary Rollins announced the USDA was investing $21 million to help renovate an existing sterile fruit fly production facility there in Matapa, Mexico, and transforming this into a New World screwworm production facility. When this facility is operational, they should have a production capacity of 60 to 100 million additional sterile flies weekly. So it is my understanding that Mexico is going to put forth $39 million US dollars to this effort. So on June the 18th, Secretary Rollins came to South Texas there at the Moorfield Air Base to announce that she was providing or allocating $8.5 million to a sterile fly dispersal facility there at the Moorfield Air Base, and also announced the sweeping 5-pronged plan to help eliminate the New World screwworm. Further in the month of June there on June the 30th, Secretary Rollins announced a risk-based port reopening for the cattle and bison and equines from Mexico, beginning as early as July the 7th. This phased reopening was to begin with the Douglas, Arizona port. On July the 9th, the phased reopening was short-lived in that Seneca reported a new case of New World screwworms in Veracruz. This finding was approximately 160 miles northward of the current sterile fly dispersal grid there in Mexico on the eastern side of the country. And that case would have been 370 miles south of the U.S.-Mexico border. On July the 23rd, Secretary Rollins asked that New World screwworm fly surveillance be started on the Texas southern border. The USDA worked to produce 101 or up to 900 traps. They've got those built and stored for future use. But today we have 101 sterile New World screwworm fly traps deployed in 8 counties from Brownsville up to Del Rio. And the surveillance will continue until the threat of New World screwworm decreases in Mexico. On August the 15th, Secretary Rollins announced the largest initiative yet in the USDA's plans to combat the New World screwworm. The announcement builds upon her 5-pronged plan issued back in June to combat the northward spread of the New World screwworm from Mexico into the United States. And as part of this plan, this comprehensive approach, the USDA is taking the following steps to help facilitate these actions. Number one, protect the United States border. She did allocate $750 million in August there for the construction of a domestic sterile screwworm production facility. The USDA will construct the sterile fly production facility in Edinburgh there at the Moore Airfield Base. This production facility will have the capacity of producing up to 300 million sterile flies per week to combat New World screwworms. Also, she mentioned innovating our way to eradication. She also will allocate $100 million to invest in viable innovations in the areas of New World screwworm sterile fly production techniques, novel New World screwworm fly traps and lures, New World screwworm therapeutics that could be stockpiled and used for New World screwworm if New World screwworms reach the United States. And also this money can be used for other tools to bolster preparedness in response to New World screwworms. The third step was to stop the pest from spreading in Mexico and ensure that we are full partners in eradication. The USDA APHIS is working in collaboration with Seneca in Mexico to help them contain the pest south of the United States border by enhancing United States oversight, surveillance, improving case reporting, locking down animal movements to prevent further spread, providing traps, lures, training, and verification of the Mexican New World screwworm activities. Successful implementation will inform any future trade decisions impacting cattle movements on the southern border to include the potential reopening of the border areas. On August the 18th, the Department of Health and Human Services issued a declaration of emergency pursuant to the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act for New World screwworm. The declaration is the first step under the statute that authorizes the Food and Drug Administration to issue an emergency use authorization for animal drugs for prevention or treatment of New World screwworm myiasis. I will now go through our Texas response to New World screwworms to date. Since May of 2025, the Texas Animal Health Commission Emergency Management Team has held 3 two-day New World screwworm field response trainings for THC staff and other response agencies. 76 of our 110 livestock inspectors and 8 region managers, directors, and field veterinarians have completed the training. Other Texas Animal Health Commission staff has rotated through this training as schedule has permitted. To date, 12 Texas Parks and Wildlife biologists and game wardens have completed the training. We do have another training scheduled for September 9th and 10th. The Texas Animal Health Commission continues our New World screwworm planning and preparedness activities. Our weekly and biweekly communication coordination and collaboration calls are ongoing. Internal and external working groups continue to work on response plans focusing on animal movement control, treatment, and surveillance. The Texas Animal Health Commission and USDA APHIS Veterinary Services staff have conducted one-on-one planning sessions to go over the outline for the USDA's New World Screwworm Response Playbook. Additionally, Texas Animal Health Commission hosted a two-day New World Screwworm Plan Development Workshop with the USDA APHIS Veterinary Services, USDA APHIS Agriculture Research Service, USDA Wildlife Services, the Food and Drug Administration Center for Veterinary Medicine, CDC, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, and state agencies to include the Texas Parks and Wildlife, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, Texas Department of Agriculture, as well as the Department of State Health Services. We continue to work twice a week with the National Assembly of State Animal Health Officials, New World Screwworm Working Group members, and the USDA National Preparedness and Incident Coordination staff, as well as USDA Ruminant Health staff to finalize the USDA's New World Screwworm Response Playbook and ultimately the Texas Animal Health Commission New World Screwworm Response Plan. The NASAHO New World Screwworm Working Group was formed to harmonize interstate movement plans and protocols. Education and outreach efforts to raise awareness continue to be conducted. Texas Animal Health Commission continues to meet with industry groups to keep them apprised of the New World Screwworm situation in Mexico and discuss the latest information involving response, treatment, control, and eradication efforts. On June the 25th, Governor Abbott announced the Texas Animal Health Commission, Texas Parks and Wildlife, New World Screwworm Response Team with the mission to amplify New World Screwworm preparedness in Texas. Weekly meetings between multiple levels of staff are held to coordinate response plan and development and enhancement. Weekly meetings between both agencies' communication departments coordinating existing and future outreach initiatives and activities are ongoing. The first meeting of this multiple disciplinary response team will take place on September the 4th of this year. Ultimately, this team will serve as a central hub for coordinating information, aligning strategies, and delivering resources to support prevention, detection, control, and eradication efforts. To report on other diseases, our bovine trichomoniasis working group met on July the 10th with 10 participants in both in-person and remote. Dr. Monday, the state epidemiologist, presented data on the DHC trick program. Dr. Brandon Dominguez with Texas Veterinary Medical Diagnostic Lab gave a report on 5 years of trick testing trends done by the TVMDL. And Dr. Tom Haregrove gave a report on the study to estimate trichomoniasis in slaughter bulls where preliminary results placed the prevalence of trick in the bulls at 4.35%. Two action items were generated by the working group for the commission to address under agenda item 16. As far as equine infectious anemia, to date in 2025, we have detected 45 EA positive horses, iatrogenic transmission involving the use of contaminated injectable products and or blood doping, as well as contaminated IV sets, syringes, and needles continue to be a concern. Concerning the North Texas equine practice, there have been a total of 23 EI positive horses confirmed in 4 states, to include Texas, California, Colorado, and Oklahoma. This joint investigation continues with the State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners, the USDA, and the Texas Animal Health Commission. To highly pathogenic avian influenza. In the poultry industry, we've been dealing with a national outbreak since February 8th of 2022. To date, it's affected over approximately 175 million birds. 1,710 premises in 50 states and Puerto Rico have been affected, with 1,030 of those being considered poultry production facilities by the World Organization of Animal Health. As far as Texas goes, to date, 14 premises have been positive for high-path avian influenza since February 2022, 2 of those being commercial flocks. One was in the early part of 2022, which was a game hunting preserve. The other was a large layer facility last year in April in the western part of the Texas Panhandle. We did have 2 backyard flocks affected with avian influenza this last year, one being in Brazoria County and the other being in Burnett County back in January. Moving on to high-path avian influenza in the dairy and livestock. We discovered that in March of 2025 or March 25th of 2024 with a spillover of high path avian influenza, the genotype B313. To date, that has affected 18 states, and there have been 1,080 confirmed premises as of 8/22 of 2025. In Texas, we have had 29 premises confirmed in both the Panhandle and Stephenville milk sheds. The last known test positive premises showing clinical signs was in the Panhandle milk shed back in December of 2024. There have been two cases or two premises confirmed positive since back in May of this year. Those were dairies that were going to participate in the ELAP program with USDA funding, and they were allowed to test bank samples that were banked back from March of 2024 to participate in this program. We've had several spillover events in the western part of the United States involving a different genotype, type D1.1, that being in Nevada dairy cattle back in January and Arizona dairy cattle in February of this year. The genotype D1.1 represents the predominant genotype in the North American flyways this past fall and winter, and has been identified in wild birds, mammals, and spillovers into domestic poultry. Back in December of 2024, the USDA put in place or passed a federal order requiring the mandatory testing of unpasteurized milk intended for interstate movement. This created the USDA APHIS National Milk Testing Strategy. Texas began the National Milk Testing Strategy on April the 7th by conducting plant silo monitoring. The Department of State Health Services administers the pasteurized milk ordinance established by the FDA and is conducting this silo sampling here in Texas. We currently are on the 5th round of testing. We've tested 412 silos. Those samples have been submitted to the NBSL, and we have not had been made aware of any positive silos to date. If a positive silo is detected, the Texas Animal Health Commission will be responsible for coordinating the collection of bulk milk tank samples from each dairy in the positive silo to detect the positive dairy. The Texas Animal Health Commission will work with the positive dairy to mitigate spread and ultimately eliminate the virus from the premises. In the next section of the waivers and variances that are action items, that concludes my report, and I will gladly answer any questions or concerns that you might have.
Anyone have any questions of Dr. Daniels?
Dr. Dinges, just out of curiosity, the 4.3% trick prevalence and the slaughtered bulls, is that kind of within the expected
I think
range
the
of ability or?
given the situation, I bet prevalence is what we see in adjacent herds around to our trick positive herds. It's been reported. I think our prevalence rate is below 1% here in the state. Dr. Monday will certainly address that in her report, but that's probably what can be expected because that's what we've seen in our adjacent herds to our trick positive herds to date. So, thank you. Yes, sir. Any other questions or comments?
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, sir.
We need to take action on waivers and variances. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that it is approved the waiver request and variances that's presented today.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the waivers and variances. Any discussion or comments? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye. And opposed by no's, and the motion passes unanimously. The next item will be a legislative update. Mr. Juan Alfaro.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Juan Alfaro here to provide you with the legislative update. If you recall, the last time the commission met was in late May or sometime before the session ended. So I'm just here to give you an update on what was the end result of the regular session, and then also what took place during the first special call session. And then now what's taking place now during the second call special session. So I guess I'd like to start off first with some numbers. Some folks like to take a look at numbers. So if you look at the slide, the first slide, you'll see some of the total numbers of the number of bills that were filed. So there were a total of 11,503 bills that were filed in both the House and the Senate. And then you can see a breakdown of how many bills were passed in both chambers, how many concurrent resolutions, joint resolutions, and resolutions were filed, and of course, how many of those passed. So if you recall, remember, a concurrent resolution is a type of legislative measure that's adopted by both chambers, and it usually requires action by the governor. A joint resolution is also adopted by both chambers. It does not require any action by the governor. And resolutions are those, for example, congratulatory resolutions, memorial resolutions, and so forth. So just wanted to show you some numbers and figures so you get an idea of the amount of work members put in during the regular session, which again ended in early June. So going on to the next slide. So next, in the next slide, then one of the primary responsibilities for the legislature is to authorize and appropriate all funds for the state's government appropriations. So I wanted to give you kind of some of the major highlights from Senate Bill 1, which is the appropriations bill. And Senate Bill 1, remember, it rotates. It's Senate Bill 1 this session. Next time it will be House Bill 1, so it rotates back and forth. And it's called the Appropriations Bill. And for this next biennium, for 2026-2027, our agency was appropriated $40.8 million for the biennium. And I provided a breakdown, 37.3 in GR funds, general revenue funds, and $3.5 million in federal funds. We were also approved for 226.2 FTEs for the biennium for fiscal year 2026 and 2027. The bill pattern in Senate Bill 1 also showed 10 riders, a total of 10 riders. I'm only going to cover 4 of these. And the first one being rider number 7, which is an IT information technology reporting requirement. And the agency will now be required to submit annually our efforts to improve our IT capabilities and recommendations. And this report will be submitted to the LBP in the governor's office no later than November the 1st of each fiscal year. And of course, this will be starting in this next biennium. So IT, I guess, will be taking the lead on that and working with the rest of the program departments and in asking what kind of IT efforts or what kind of IT improvements can be made, and then submit that report. In rider number 8, we have the agricultural and livestock entry point stations, which we had this past biennium. We will continue to work with TDA, Texas Department of Agriculture, in operating and conducting livestock inspections at entry points along the Texas-Oklahoma, Texas-Louisiana, Texas-New Mexico, and Texas-Arkansas borders. For rider number 9, we have the cattle fever tick mitigation clinical trials. The agency will be receiving an additional $30,000 for fiscal year 2026 for completing the cattle fever tick mitigation clinical trials, which began last biennium. In rider number 10, this is another report that they have asked the agency to submit, and this is a report on livestock threats over the next 10 years. So the agency will receive $100,000 in GR funds for fiscal year 2026 to draft and submit a report on threats to livestock over the next 10 years. And this will be submitted no later than September the 1st, 2026. And it will be submitted to the Senate Finance, Senate Water, Agriculture, and Rural Affairs Committees, the House Appropriations Committee, the House Agriculture and Livestock Committee, and the LBB. Next slide. In continuing with some of the appropriations that were made, now we refer to House Bill 500, which is referred to as a supplemental appropriations bill. The agency will receive approximately $1.3 million for the purchase of motor vehicles for this next biennial for fiscal year 2026 and 2027. Under our exceptional items list, which is the agency's wish list that we submitted to both the LDB, the Senate Finance and House Appropriations Committees, it's also referred to as the issue docket. We were approved for $2.1 million in 10 FTEs. This includes $272,550 for operating and starting up costs to establish the ectoparasite field identification lab, which also includes procuring the specialized equipment. And we also received $1 million to add 4 FTEs, veterinarian positions, and $144,550 to increase the salaries for 1 veterinarian 3 position and 5 veterinarian 5 positions. And also, just for your information, under Senate Bill 1, under the bill pattern for the Higher Education Coordinating Board, as Dr. Dinges had mentioned, the Higher Education Coordinating Board is scheduled to receive $5 million in GR funds for the Rural Veterinarian Incentive Program for the next biennium for fiscal year 2026 and fiscal year 2027. Next, I will cover just 4 bills that are kind of examples of the type of legislation that members considered and passed. And the first one being Senate Bill 503 by Senator Perry. This is relating to the establishment of an electronic registry of livestock marks and brands. And this will take effect, I guess, less than a week from today on September the 1st, 2025. You may click on the link that's provided there and you can see a copy of the bill that was filed with all the specific information about what exactly is required. But overall, county clerks must work with the agency to, within deadlines required by the bill, to record marks and brands with the county clerks and for county clerks to deliver those to the agency electronically. And we were provided $3.1 million as a contingency rider for that, and an increase in capital budget authority of $2.6 million for the biennium. Next slide. This is a bill that was filed by Senator, or I should say Representative Kitzman, House Bill 43. And this is related to the Texas Agricultural Finance Authority and certain programs administered by the authority. And again, this was effective immediately, so it was effective on June the 20th of 2025. And again, you may click on that and you can take a look at the specifics of the bill if you would like to read as to what the bill is asking for. And it would require the authority to provide financial assistance to our agency to implement programs that are agriculture related to diseases, pests, or predators. So the agency responsible for implementing this bill is the Texas Department of Agriculture, and they will be providing an application that they will draw up, and then they will share with us. And then we can go ahead and submit that application to ask for some additional monies from the Agricultural Finance Authority, which the money comes from what's called the Texas Agricultural Fund. So that's House Bill 43. Next, we have House Bill 1592 by Representative Plessa. And this is relating to an alert system for dangerous plant and wildlife pests and diseases administered by the Texas AgriLife Extension Service. And this bill also goes into effect on September the 1st, so less than a week from today. Again, there's a link provided if you'd like to click on the link to get some further information. And this would require the Extension Service to enter into a memorandum of understanding with our agency to develop and implement a statewide inter-based alert system for notifications related to wildlife and plant pest diseases and quarantines. So our legal department will be working on this regarding the memorandum of understanding. As soon as we receive word from Texas AgriLife, we're ready to proceed with the MOU. The last bill I wanted to highlight was the Senate Bill 14 by Senator King et al. This was authored by numerous, a good number of senators. And this is relating to reforming the procedure by which state agencies adopt rules and impose regulatory requirements. And again, this goes into effect on September the 1st, 2025. And the Senate bill established a regulatory efficiency division within the governor's office to support state agencies in their review of rules and in developing cost-benefit analyses of these rules. It will create a new user-friendly portal to give individuals and business owners the ability to search for rules and requirements applicable to their specific business activities and plans. So again, this takes effect this coming September the 1st, 2025. So those are just some of the major highlights. Of course, there are other bills that passed that affect not only our agency, but agencies across the board in the state. I just wanted to highlight 4 that specifically would affect our agency. And of course, there are a few others related to HR and so forth. The next slide, I wanted to just kind of briefly mention, and you can see that for yourselves. I'm not going to go through them one by one. The list of agenda items that the governor had placed for the first call special session. Most of the bills, as you probably have noticed, were all related to one of these topics, and they continue to be filed. And so I just wanted to point these out. There are 18 of those that were listed on the agenda items again for the first call special session. On the next slide, some of the highlights that took place during the first call special session. First of all, New World Screwworm is currently not on the list of agenda items for the first call special session. So members may file bills, they can file bills and file bills, committees may meet and discuss, but really nothing moves forward, nothing goes to the floor of the House or anything is engrossed or enrolled by the chambers because it is not on the list of agenda items as required, that the governor must do in order for the legislature to move forward. Next, Representative Guillen and 92 other House members have submitted a letter to the governor's office requesting that the screwworm be added to the governor's list of agenda items. So that letter came from the House. And on the Senate side, Senator Perry and 19 other Senate members also submitted a letter to the governor's office requesting the same. So again, it is currently still not listed on the list of agenda items to be considered. Several meetings and committee hearings have been held to update the House Agriculture and Livestock Committee on the current New World Screwworm threat. Dr. Dinges, Dr. Lansford, and Ms. Coggeshall have been testifying in committee and providing updates and letting the members know what is going on in Mexico, what's going along, taking place along the U.S.-Mexican border, and how to best move forward. So be rest assured that they have done a great job. And we do receive some follow-up questions every once in a while, but they have all been addressed. And so we continue to hopefully move forward in trying to address or mitigate this whole situation, threat, and challenge. And finally, USDA Secretary Rollins and Governor Abbott announced that USDA will invest $750 million by constructing a sterile fly production facility down in Edinburgh, Texas. They will produce 300 million sterile flies per week. So these are events that took place during the time the first special session, call session was taking place. On the next slide, again, you'll see some numbers from the first call special session. You had a total of 592, everything from bills to concurrent resolutions, joint resolutions, and resolutions on both chambers that were filed. I just kind of wanted to show you the numbers and what those look like. As you probably can see up there, 71 bills in the Senate, none passed, none vetoed. In the House, 298 were filed. Nothing passed, nothing vetoed. And of course, I guess I really don't have to tell you why, but that's what took place during the first call special session. In the next slide then, The agenda list for the second call special session includes the 18 agenda items that were listed in the first call special session. And then I added the 3 additional agenda items that the governor listed for the second call special session. So again, these are all, members have been filing in both chambers, all sorts of resolutions, bills, and so forth related to these topics. But again, New World Screwworm is not on the list of agenda items. However, that doesn't mean that we don't track and follow what's being filed. We do. We track and we make sure that in the event we get notified that it has been added to the agenda, then we're ready to move forward and we're ready to provide any information or any kind of, witnesses and so forth that need to testify in committee. And then finally, I just wanted to go over again what's going on right now during the second call special session. How many bills as of August the 21st have been filed? There have been a total of 451 bills, concurrent resolutions, joint resolutions, and resolutions from both chambers that have been filed. And again, since this is as of August the 21st, which is pretty much when the second call special session was called, you see the 0% passed and vetoed. So that concludes my presentation. And I hope we were able to provide you with some valuable current situation of what's going on over at the Capitol. Thank you.
Anyone have questions? Well, thank you very much.
You.
Our next agenda item will be agenda 9, the field animal health programs and disease traceability activities. Dr. G.R. Lansford.
Morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity. It's always a pleasure to share a few things with you, try to give you some updates. Dr. Din just covered a lot of ground this morning, so I'm gonna probably have a little bit briefer report than a lot of times do, but kind of jumping right in here to talk about animal disease traceability. Just wanted to provide some numbers there as usual with updates on the tag distribution, the free tag RFID tag distribution program. The request for those tags has fallen off a little bit over this last quarter, but we're still well over 1.8 million tags distributed at this point, and still have some demand for those tags. And I guess one side note related to that is that if we were to have an outbreak or an incursion in New World screwworms, we've already had that discussion with USDA to potentially be able to get those tags for official identification in those animals as needed. So that's good because we've got a lot of tags sitting in the warehouse. So we've got quite a supply there. We also got word from USDA that they have allotted us some additional tags this year. We don't know what that number is yet, but that's a good thing, and we certainly are prepared to receive those and have those ready to go. So also looking at the numbers from a Scrapie Flock ID standpoint, that continues to be fairly steady. And I think still that's largely due to our cooperation and collaboration with through outreach activities with the markets, and we certainly greatly appreciate those efforts by everybody. So we haven't talked about noose tags in a good while, and so I wanted to mention a few things about noose tags, the metal clips. We have ordered and are in the process of receiving every noose tag that has been manufactured that sits in the Kansas City warehouse at USDA. And so we have asked for those to get them into our inventories because we're still distributing those to markets. They're tagging adult animals, and those cattle are staying within the state for intra-state movement. And so I know that causes a little bit of confusion and consternation maybe with some of our federal partners, but in terms of our rules for intra-state movements, that's still an allowable use for those. And discussing that with the markets is that's a much better economic decision to invest in that cheaper technology for a lot of those animals that are going to be headed to slaughter anyway. And so that's kind of what that is about. But certainly we'll continue to distribute those until they're gone. And once they're gone, then we'll have to pursue the RFID tags for those same purposes. So one other thing that let's see, red slides. So I'm a little bit out of order, but that's okay. I'll go backwards. One other thing I wanted to update everybody on is that we have been working with Texas FFA and Texas 4-H AgriLife Extension on the validation tag situation. They changed to their validation tags to official IDs a number of years ago at this point. And we needed to get in writing kind of an agreement with those entities to make sure we were all on the same page about how that process worked, make sure the regulatory requirements were being met, and most importantly, that the record keeping requirements were being met. So we do finally have an agreement in place with them, a signed agreement that was completed on July the 10th. And certainly the highlights of that is it talks about, what's required from both primarily from a record keeping standpoint on if they add a tag, another official ID to an animal that's got an official ID, or even more importantly, what's required if they remove an official ID that's in an animal and put an official ID validation tag in there. And so we've got that ironed out. That's moving forward. And certainly as a side benefit to that, I think that will help some of our exhibitors or youths that go outside of Texas to exhibit some livestock, primarily goats, as they get into some of these other states, and those states are looking for specific scrapie flock tags and some things like that, that we have a document now that explains this validation tag meets those requirements. And again, there may be some specific things we have to iron out with some of those states, but it's going to help with that situation a bunch. So certainly appreciate all the cooperation, collaboration with our partners over at AgriLife Extension and Texas FFA to get this done, and certainly look forward to continuing that collaboration, cooperation on some other topics. Certainly from the standpoint of New World Screwworms, they've been big partners at this point, will continue to be so. So related to stakeholder outreach, the map here that shows our efforts by Matt Kabbalah to get out there and meet with our authorized veterinarians to get tag readers, electronic readers into their hands. That number continues to climb. We've got 268 of those out in the field now in the hands of those practicing veterinarians. We still certainly continue to participate in industry events as well to distribute tags and talk about ADT and ID requirements. And certainly appreciate all the support from our communications department and our authorized personnel program and getting that word out, working with veterinarians to keep them updated. So moving into program records and quality assurance. Reported at the last commission meeting that 2 of our 3 major data backlogs of certificates of veterinary inspection, or CVIs, had been resolved. And since that time, I'm very happy and pleased to report that our program record staff is keeping those queues current. And that is, if you look at, I know it's hard to see on this slide, my apologies for the small numbers, but it looks a lot bigger on that great big screen I've got sitting in my office. But anyway, there you can see that there's a fairly significant number of CVIs that are being issued by Texas veterinarians and coming in from other states. And so that's a great undertaking and quite a milestone and an accomplishment, because we're probably one of the few states that can actually stand up and say, yes, we're current in all of our CVI handling and routing to the state's destination. So that's quite an accomplishment, and appreciate Rebecca's leadership back there, and certainly all the work that program record staff is doing to keep that going. So the other thing that's in this slide that again, it's a little bit hard to see, but just wanted those box numbers there to show that the transition from paper CVIs to electronic CVIs continues to grow more towards the electronic side. It looks fairly steady there, but as more states around us put in requirements for electronic CVIs for animals coming into their state, that number will continue to grow. And so at some point, as we especially look at challenges associated with threats like New World Screwworm, we'll just continue to bring that up to mention that we need to keep in the forefront the potential movement to or transition to all electronic CVIs at some point in the future. So moving into emergency management. Dr. Dinges covered a lot of this, but certainly New World Screwworm planning and preparedness remains to be at the forefront of that department's activities. And, we continue to participate in numerous internal working groups. We have established those to help put the meat on the bone, so to speak, of the tactical response plans and help USDA with the playbook to get that completed. And those plans are nearing completion. We're looking forward to having those and getting through that process with USDA so we can start sharing those pieces and parts with industry, because I know they're certainly anxious to see what some of that's going to look like. So in terms of other activities related to New World Screwworm, certainly lots of weekly meetings with our other state partners and federal partners and industry partners as we continue to coordinate and build the response plan and keep everybody in the loop of updates and kind of where everything is. So appreciate all the external folks working with us on that and all their collaboration in that. From a training perspective, Dr. Den just talked about some of the numbers already in those sessions, but certainly mostly want to recognize the efforts of Ms. Donna Mahawkey, our training officer, our EM staff, our region management staff, our communication staff, everybody that helps make that very successful, and certainly want to recognize our USDA ARS collaborators for their assistance in getting that stood up and making that a very effective response training for New World Screwworm, and certainly appreciate our external partners in participating in those training activities, and look forward to including AgriLife Extension moving forward and some discussions with some other entities to potentially expand this training to not only state agencies, but potentially help with some industry pieces too. So other things besides screwworms that we have certainly been engaged with, and the Emergency Management Department, Holly had the opportunity to go last week to Maryland to got ahead of myself, but a tri-national African swine fever tabletop exercise, and certainly appreciate her traveling to that. Had the opportunity to interact with a number of other state animal health officials, state emergency management folks, and some folks from Canada and Mexico. Made some contacts there that moving forward may be useful in discussion on New World Screwworm. So other planning activities, though, and that we've been engaged with is tri-state feedlot exercise. Holly had the opportunity to go to Colorado and sit in on their version of that exercise, which has been helpful because we've been very much so busy with New World Screwworm planning. And so our piece in that project is her going to see that what they're doing in Colorado will make our piece in that project easier, as we're working with the same feed yards that Colorado is, so same company. So additionally, we had the opportunity to have an ag-centric ICS 300 class, which that may not mean a whole lot other than if you have the opportunity to sit through an ICS 300 that is maybe law enforcement based or fire department based, it's really hard to relate to some of that if you're a livestock inspector. So we had an ag-centric ICS 300 class that Holly and crew got put together, and we had 26 staff participate in that, and get certified. So that's great expenditure of funds to get that done and make it useful and actually applicable. So from a response standpoint, we were involved locally with some issues related to the flooding that was in Central Texas, primarily earlier in the summer. And so certainly appreciate the opportunity to assist in that tragic set of events there. So we've also continued to engage with APHIS management, incident management teams that have come down and are running the kind of the structure or the response or the surveillance activity. I don't want to say response, but surveillance activity that's occurring along the river related to New World Screwworms. And that's good because that gives us an idea kind of how USDA is thinking about if we have to respond, what that structure is going to look like, gives us some insight on what that looks like, who the players are, all of those pieces and parts there. So that's from a unified command preparation standpoint, that's invaluable. So mentioned the tri-national African swine fever tabletop already, but we continue to engage with multiple national, state level agricultural preparedness groups as we have been doing, and certainly appreciate those efforts by the Emergency Management Department. So lastly, talking about some animal health program activities and updates from a staffing standpoint. Dr. Den just covered a lot of this, but for a few more details, first and foremost, I want to to recognize Ms. Laura Liao, who was started a couple of weeks ago as my my executive assistant. She undoubtedly has one of the hardest jobs in the agency, keeping me in line and keeping track of me. So really want to thank her for taking the challenge on and her excellent contributions to this point, that she's hit the ground running on that, in that task, in that capacity. So region director wise, we still have vacancies at Beeville and Amarillo. As Juan pointed out, though, we did get exceptional item for some additional funding for salaries. So we'll be reposting those positions moving forward in the new fiscal year, new biennium, and hopefully with those increases, we'll be able to attract and retain some qualified candidates to fill those positions. So from field staff perspective, everything remains good there. Still fairly low turnover in those positions, and applicant pools have continued to be filled with really well-qualified folks. And so we've had no issue at this point getting those filled, and that's a good thing. So as Juan mentioned, we did get some additional staff positions through the exceptional items, and we're evaluating that and working through the staffing and organization pieces to get those folks worked in and put in the right spots. Some of those positions have already been posted, and we're working on getting the rest of those posted soon into the fiscal year, new fiscal year there. So want to thank our management teams in the regions, and certainly our HR folks for all the support they give us in making all that happen and keep everything moving forward. So last couple of things from a field perspective is that, obviously we continue to ramp up our New World Screwworm training and awareness and response training and awareness. We want to really thank our region management teams for their commitment to getting that training done and accomplished for our livestock inspectors and for themselves as management. Certainly appreciate all their service and assistance in getting samples of suspicious flies and larvae. We've had quite an uptick in those as awareness continues to grow related to the New World Screwworm situation, but appreciate all of their efforts and work to get those samples submitted to NVSL for identification. And certainly they're willing and active participation in outreach activities. So we've been on the speaking tour now for a number of weeks, providing outreach and opportunities for awareness for New World Screwworms, and certainly can't do it without all of their support and assistance. So, yep. There we go. So the last thing there is just, I've talked about New World Screwworms a bunch, but certainly our staff continues to do the regular job, the important jobs that we have on at all times out there in the field, and just wanted to provide a few numbers there. I'm not going to read all those, but certainly just wanted to illustrate that we are continuing to carry out our regular mission in addition to trying to prepare for New World Screwworms as well. So I think that's everything I have. Certainly thank you all for your support and your service to livestock industries, and just want to also kind of reiterate a statement that Juan had about our team here, and just tell you that I am greatly appreciative of the team that we have at the Animal Health Commission, from executive leadership all the way through the field and all the other departments, and everything is working very, very well and smoothly, and can't ask for more. So with that, any questions, I'll be glad to entertain those, or point over here to Dr. Dinges. So
Any questions? Thank you very much, Dr. Gaspar.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda will be a presentation of disease information and epidemiology activities. Dr. Jesse Mundy.
Hey, y'all.
Hello.
For those of you that y'all haven't met Claudette yet, it's my partner Claudette. If I trip over her, we'll blame it on the nice solid flat ground. So, we've been an agency in motion since Dr. Dinges took the helm, but for the quarter of the numbers I'm going to show you, we've been in motion with hustle. Everybody's been super busy. So starting with high path AI and livestock, as Dr. Dinges told you, that we have had been working on cases since March of 2024. We had 27 confirmed cases. We haven't had a clinical case since last December. We did have two banked cases since there, but the last clinical one was, the clinical onset was December 2nd on epi review, and nothing since then. So 0 cases in the last 30 days in Texas, and the country as of right now has simmered down. Going through the fiscal year, so Q3, we've reported Q1 and Q2 to you since the beginning of this fiscal year. Going through and starting with my favorite, cattle tuberculosis. So 6 herds are under TB assurance testing. We're really moving these forwards, closing traces, getting them under the assurance tested so we can close these out. So these aren't under any movement restrictions. But we got super excited and must have said that was really good more than 3 times, because now we have 2 more cases that we're investigating right now. We have a beef case down there in yellow that we're still investigating. It hasn't been, the disposition of that one hasn't been sorted out yet. We'll get that testing done and sort it. We do have 2 cases that we're involved with, helping with New Mexico as well, but involved with a TB that was found at Harvest. We have 21 trace investigations going on. So just so you know, those 21 trace investigations, that's in a very short amount of time, our Amarillo region testing 25,000 plus cows. So lots of good work on that one, figuring that out. We did so far have affected outside traces in 10 states, but all working together to get movement on that, get that closed out, and we'll work it and close it out just like we have the other one. So it's going, no big surprises there, except for that we have TB, but working through it. Brucellosis, as usual, our surveillance program is working. We've did over 10,810 tests. More than 10,800 tests, which is 10,810, my bad. But just for Q3, we've responded since the beginning of the fiscal year to 3 different ones, investigated the case, which mostly in these involved retesting the cow or testing the cow out or testing the cow into the harvest. So these cases will close out, nothing surprising here, but we do continue to monitor. We do continue to find suspects on serology testing, and we respond and do what we can to protect the state through that. Trichomoniasis, so we have about the same culture positives, nothing surprising there. 1.2% since the beginning of the last fiscal year. Somebody asked about overall trick testing. From the trick working groups, the reporting period for that is a little different than our quarters and our year, but we had right at 46,000 tests come through TBMDL, and they had 0.4% positive rate. And so looking at what we looked at with Dr. Haregrove's project, ours is very focused. We worked with 58 herds. We had a 20% positive rate, but we were there for a reason. The lab had 0.4%, and Dr. Haregrove's was a biased, is a different population. So the targeted population, the purpose of that research is kind of see, are we missing it if we're not looking at harvest, if we wanted to go to a very strict program. So that lines up, nothing really surprising there, but that's why those 3 numbers don't align. They're different populations, different objectives, but we're pretty consistent here. As you can see, where the testing picks up during the cell season, the foal season, not necessarily the yearling bull season, we've got higher levels, and that's because we're not testing as many virgins and we're not retesting in those time periods. So those are more, we're about to put them out. We're going to find holes for our high risk ones. So year over year, that stays pretty consistent with a little bit overall lowering for it. So really any questions about Craig? I'm not sure I 100% understood the question. Lots of numbers, yay. Okay, so the national milk silo thing. So USDA thought we didn't have enough programs to work on, but we're happy to help and participate with this one. So in response to, by the way, cows can get bird diseases now. So in response to high path AI and dairy livestock, the USDA had several different programs put together, different federal directives, and what came out of it that helped move things along, because we weren't going to eradicate it magically, was the silo testing program. So different states responded differently. It's actually DISH that's taking primary on this, with Texas Animal Health Commission monitoring the NVSL test results and being prepared to respond. And we are prepared to respond if there's any suspects. And what this will find is suspect to respond to then clarify. There's a world where we go out and we respond to a silo test that the little ding went off, y'all need to go work, and we find 0 positive dairies. That is how this testing is set up. We haven't had to do that yet, so I can't tell you what that looks like, but we've walked through it. We know what we're going to do. So what they did is they go out and they sample, based on the federal definition, they go out and their folks, as part of their program that's already established, so being as efficient as we can with taxpayer resources, they go out and they inspect the silos that meet that definition. Those have been enrolled in the program, and that target moves over time. And if it has the correct sample, enough of the correct sample, so it's not empty, it's not a different product, it's not milk is there, but it's too low to sample based on the technology, then they pull that sample, they send it to NVSL. And as those subpopulation of samples sent from so silos enrolled, inspected, sampled if it qualifies, then those qualified samples go to NVSL. And then we get told if those NVSL test results are positive, at which point we will respond. And from that, we will go investigate the dairies that contributed to that silo sample. So in 3 seconds or less, I'm sorry, guys. Across the state, these are the ones that are current status based on the silo monitoring program. There's a little bit of disgruntlement about the number what round we're in and the fact that we're still blue based on we worked your program and you say you're not confident, but that's your program, so that's your problem. But DISH is working through that. They are pushing back on that so that Texas, based on their program that we're working, should be yellow today. But that's just the opinion of an epidemiologist on statistics. So this is what the states are across the board. Some of those white states that are provisionally unaffected are misleading because 4 of those aren't even doing anything. So Texas, at the end of Q3, we had completed 2 rounds. And so that was 175 silos in April, and we sampled 86 of those, and 173 silos in May, and we sampled, meaning DISH, sampled 103 of those. So that's the level of surveillance we have with this new program. And that's what this will look like over time, is knowing which silos we need to sample, which silos we need to look at, knowing which silos we then sample of that population, and then seeing if NVSL detects anything. We haven't had to respond yet. So in a nutshell, any questions about the silo program? I know it's new. Beautiful. So cattle fever ticks, this one always makes me happy because we are looking for it. We are finding it where we're finding it. We are either responding or we know what to do. We're not surprised it's there because we're already there and responding, and we found it because we're already there. So we're still looking at it. A lot of ticks, 475. So that's right on par for this and finding the fever ticks. That's not like, I would love to say that and be like, whoop, 441, we're winning. That's weather. It's just the time of year that happens. So just so that y'all know, but it is less, but also happens, but also no guy. We'll get it. We'll get it. Equine testing, EIA, as y'all know, EIA has been a super fun program to work for the regions that this has impacted, but we're continuing to test. A lot of that coming through all of our EIA labs. And so we have at the level of testing, so test run, Q1 through 3 is over 130,000 tests. Now that includes repeats, different things that could cause a dilution effect. The fact is that we are testing a lot of horses and we are also finding it. So of the 24 confirmed EIA positive horses, we do have 1 in there in both Q2, so last time and this time, that are dual infected. So you'll see my numbers jump around a lot if y'all are following along with your pencils and math. But those 2 dual infected horses will mess with the numbers. So if you see 76, that's what that's about. So Cairo. So pyroplasmosis, same thing. We're not testing as much. I'm an epidemiologist. I don't have to draw the blood or pay for the test, but I would love if this mirrored EIA a lot more. I would love if we tested it more, especially on regionally more at-risk animals, but we are testing for it and we are finding cases to respond to and look at. So we're doing everything that we're empowered to do to look for and respond and protect for this disease. And then with it, decide and help whoever has that horse understand options and what they can do moving forward. These cases tend to stay open a little bit longer, looking at the casework, just because some people want to treat. Some horses do clear, and some people don't. They want to go the EIA route so that they don't have to worry about that horse or that infection anymore. So overall, our EIA horses, Q1 through Q3, we have 76. Dr. Dingy's talked about why that number has peaked so high. We do have a national level outbreak that we were a primary geographic host to. Actually, it's split 50-50 with us and another state. But, and then our pyro horses, that's not a surprising number over time. It is getting a little higher in a specific area, a specific type of horse, but we're keeping an eye on that and working with Dr. Pelzel McCluskey. And then those dual infected horses, just there to show you over time that we do have that. And that is a specific type of horse that we're seeing that in. So looking at the spread over Texas, the teal ones are EIA. And a lot of work for Silver Springs and Stephenville. The yellow ones are pyro, so you can see where we're talking about that geographic effect. And then the pink are those horses that are dual infected that we are finding. So on to birds. Our surveillance program, we are testing the number of testing is consistent with what we've been doing over the last couple of years. This is consistent. We have a program where in the background, we're monitoring who's enrolled in the live bird market and who's testing and all the compliance and helping with that. But even having a program where we put that time in, we just showed that we're doing what we're supposed to do. Now we have something I can point to, but the testing numbers are consistent for us to remain confident that we're doing everything we can to protect the industry with animals moving in and animals moving around. PT did not want to play. PT, same thing, compliant with the NPIP program, working with Chief and Dale on that. And this just represents that there are a lot of people working on it and there are man hours behind some of these to get all of that done, to have that level of surveillance and confidence for the national program. HiPath AI and ILT together, this is where we've had to respond from that surveillance. So we do have we've had the two HiPath cases that happened they're both in the same, they're in the same area, the yellow areas. So finding those, responding to those, they weren't big poultry operations. And one of them was even like a relocation. The 19 ILT cases is what I've been paying attention to, and the weather effect associated with that. And the fact that even not in the previous quarter that we're reporting on, but as the quarter continued on, the weather didn't do us the favors it usually did and slow that down. So we actually have 19 cases, but they're very geographically focused around each other, most of them. So keeping an eye on that, seeing what's happened there, the type of operation that is, and what we're seeing, but the response remains consistent. The decisions on those, the flock response, the investigations, the epi. So trying to still figure out why, and it might just be I haven't been in epi long enough, and so it's just one of those peaks that happens every once in a while because the weather in the world says so. But keeping an eye on that. We're finding them, responding to them, we're keeping an eye on weird things. Swine testing. This is the same brucellosis, but in swine. Obviously, we have a lot more reactors. That's a test effect. They go from BAPA to FBA, and then we respond to the positives or the suspects usually. Come on. Pseudo-rabies response. We're going to cover the testing because we respond to these two diseases the same and at the same time usually. And if we're testing for one, we test for both while we're out there because of where they probably got it. Gotta love fair hawks. So the testing for pseudo-rabies as well. We see the high numbers, and you also see that you can see where show season is because the lowering in the positives, because the population you're testing has a lower risk going forward than the normal transitional population you see over time. But that's that slight wobble you see there. It is not playing well with me. Sorry, guys. So our federal testing programs for classical swine fever, African swine fever, we don't want those. Those are bad. and Scrapie, which hopefully we will be qualified for nationwide eradication soon. So we're helping with the small ruminant staff nationwide to help provide the credits needed to provide that confidence to help with even more flexible and economic trade worldwide. So we are watching these, doing everything we can to get the samples. You can see a boost in our sampling credits for sheep because we have worked and our Giddings region has found and enrolled a different target place to get the samples that the federal government needs. With some economic incentive provided by the federal government, but still we're doing a lot of work to help support that. And so we are helping to finish up that for the Scrapie program. And then CSF, ASF, that's staying pretty consistent with us still doing everything we can with sheep too, to get people to let us know if you have qualifying sick pigs that we can go get those tissue samples for, or sick sheep. The sick sheep are rolled into the credit system. You just get more credits for it. It's an interesting system. And then our favorite, CWD. So going from our 23 outbreak, we've had we've depopulated 50% of those now, and some of those have happened recently. You'll see an even bigger uptick with the report for next quarter because some indemnity stuff that happened on the federal side. And so we're finishing out. So the numbers aren't going to move for anything that's next to a depopulated column. And so just seeing how hot each of those in those county are. These are all of our cases for 2024, and we're working on depopulating and moving those forward. And then we have one breeding facility through Q3 for Kaufman. So this is our CWD. It's focused in the state and how its density and representation is changing over time. So you have 2021 through 2025. And then our trace overview, we're continuing to close out those traces and free up everything we can free up for those facilities. And so there's been movement on every one of those years. That's a lie. Sorry, guys. For this quarter, there hasn't been movement on the 2023 traces, but we're working on it. We'll get those closed out. But moving along and get those traces closed up so that those that were impacted can be freed up, and it'll be a lot of movement in the next little bit, maybe. And that's all I have. Is there anything specific I can help y'all with? I know following me can be a bit, y'all should get free coffee beforehand.
Any questions?
All righty, thank you so much.
Next item on the agenda will be a presentation of USDA veterinary service programs.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Dr. Dinges. Thank you for having me here this morning. I'll give you some brief remarks, and what I'd like to cover is some local office changes in our veterinary services office here, some updates to animal disease traceability, some brief updates on HPAI and New World Screwworm, and finally, very brief updates on cattle fever tick program. So in our local office, we currently have 9 permanent animal health technicians, which includes 2 animal ID coordinators and 1 3D animal health technician. And what that means is this person is specially trained to help with disposal, depopulation, and decontamination, mainly composting and things like that. He's a very valuable asset to have here in Texas, and he travels around the country quite a bit doing these activities. We have 4 term animal health technicians, and we are hopeful that we'll be allowed to hire more term folks as New World Screwworm raises its threat to our southern border. We have 2 support program assistants and 14 veterinary medical officers on staff, which includes 2 epidemiologists, 1 emergency coordinator, and a couple supervisors. One of our veterinarians is set to retire in the end of September, and with current hiring freeze, we're not sure we're able to replace any of the staff that we've lost, aside from potentially term employees. Moving over to animal disease traceability, on August 21st, APHIS announced a new initiative to provide no-cost RFID tags for swine beginning in the fall of 2025. These tags will be available for sow and exhibition swine producers. It's a little different from previous no-cost tag programs like the cattle tags in that producers will request these directly from the contractor, which is Merck Animal Health. APHIS awarded a contract to Merck to supply up to $20 million worth of tags to sow and exhibition swine over the next 5 years. So the direct from manufacturer to swine premises distribution model was designed hopefully to remove APHIS as an intermediary and get more tags into pigs' ears. The information on ordering these tags is on our website, and I'm sure Animal Health Commission can assist with that as well. Moving over to HPAI, you've heard quite a bit about that already. On the avian side, we still have all 50 states and 1 territory, which is Puerto Rico, considered affected. Current numbers are 1710 confirmed premises and 1,265 control areas or quarantine zones have been released in this outbreak since February 2022 when it started. The last detection, as you heard earlier, was August 15th in California. And thankfully, our last commercial detection in Texas was all the way back in April 2024. And there were a couple of backyard prems earlier this year, as you heard. So knocking on wood there. USDA continues to provide support to industry with biosecurity programs. The biosecurity incentive focused assessment program is still in effect. We've still only had 3 assessment requests so far, and but that remains something very active, especially in the northeast of the country. The audits are free, and USDA cost shares any improvements that the producer wishes to make up to 75% or $25,000. On the dairy cattle side, you heard a little bit already about the National Milk Testing Silo Testing Program. Updated numbers as of this morning, 29 states have now achieved unaffected status. 5 are still affected, including Texas, and the rest are in provisional unaffected, meaning they've never had a detection before. As far as I know, Texas will achieve that unaffected status when a statistically set sample size is reached, and hopefully that will be soon. APHIS has budgeted over $250,000, $288,000 to this effort here in Texas, which covers the sampling, the shipping, and the testing of those samples. Moving over to New World screwworm, the previous speakers took a lot of what I was going to say, so I'm not going to rehash that. But I will give you just some more information and round out some of the preparedness activities that have gone on. So I mentioned at our last meeting that a Southwest Strike Team training had taken place here in Texas. They have now done a similar training in Florida to train about 30 more people to respond to New World screwworm around the country. They're specially trained in fly trap surveillance, collection and identification of specimen, and sterile fly dispersal should we have an outbreak. Our office in Texas has also ordered and distributed New World screwworm sample kits to all of our personnel in targeted areas, and also to some FSIS slaughter plants so that they're prepared. And as you heard in June, we began a proactive trapping program from Cameron County over to Del Rio and Valverde County. And as you heard, 101 traps are in place. They're checked twice a week. Suspect flies which are cochleomya looking flies, which are the shiny flies with 3 stripes. Those are being sent to the National Veterinary Services Lab. And to date, since that trapping began on June 23rd, there's been 5,600 flies thereabouts sent up for identification. None for screwworm fly. In addition, Plant Protection and Quarantine, who maintains a trap line of about 5,000 or so traps in that same area, They are collecting any blowfly traps, blowfly appearing things in their fruit fly traps and submitting anything that looks like a suspect fly. To date, they have not caught any thing that looks like a culprit fly or screwworm fly, but that effort continues. The other area of surveillance that we're doing is the calls that we receive from members of the public, veterinary clinics, anybody that thinks they have a screwworm. And I got a call last week from a lady in Lubbock who was concerned that she had screwworm in her compost bin because she saw things that looked exactly like what's on the website. I assured her that unless she had any dead animals that she'd thrown in there, it was not screwworm. But that tells me that the outreach and communication is getting out to the people. So our office has supported this by doing foreign animal disease investigations when these are brought to our attention. They seem actionable. We've done 70 cases this year, 55 of those just since June. So there's a lot of awareness out there. Last I'll mention on the policy development side, there was a workshop held earlier this month in coordination with Texas Animal Health Commission and our National Preparedness and Incident Coordination Center. The purpose of the workshop was to facilitate the development of the New World School Playbook that you guys have been hearing about. So the facilitators presented some scenarios. We talked through how we would manage detection in this state, in another state, talked through some of the things that might happen should we actually have an incursion. And I'll just cover some of the areas that the playbook that's currently being developed intends to cover. So these are 8 key areas, actually 9 key areas. The first one is coordination between all the many agencies. And as you've heard, there's federal, state, there's wildlife, both at federal and state level, there's FDA, CDC, Customs and Border Protection. It's a real alphabet soup of agencies, that would be involved, and industry. The second key area is preventing transmission to a non-infested area. That's movement controls and treatment of infested premises. The third key area is eliminating New World screwworm on infested animals and premises. The fourth key area is management of wildlife and management of infested wildlife to prevent transmission further on. The fifth key area is eliminating New World screwworm through surveillance and sterile insect technique. Sixth key area is maintaining continuity of business, including trade, international trade considerations. Seventh is information flow. Eighth is identifying and maintaining resources for response, communication, staging equipment, that kind of thing. And last is communication and outreach. And that work is ongoing. There's many meetings every week. Each one of these key areas I've outlined is a working group that is working through those things in addition to taking feedback from many different areas, including 2 industry calls, webinars. The last one was Friday, and I believe there's one this coming Friday to listen to industry stakeholders on this issue. So that covers my New World screwworm. Before I go to cattle fever tick, do I have any questions? Then I'll give some very, very brief updates from cattle fever tick program. Dr. Don Harriet is the acting director of that program now since Mr. Picanzo retired. And he tells me that the fever tick personnel, as we know, they're very, very engaged in the New World screwworm surveillance trapping right now. They have incorporated that into their kind of daily workflow. And they did do a kind of work analysis, and they estimate about 20% of their time now is screwworm, and the rest is cattle fever tick. On fencing projects, the Zapata fencing is almost complete. Cameron County has finished the first mile of fencing. And of infested premises, there's 118 total, 47 in the systematic zone and 71 in the free. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to try to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you very much, Dr. Collins. Appreciate you being here. Next item on the agenda is a budget status report from Ms. Paula Andrews.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. I'm happy to be presenting the budget today, if you will. Okay, we're going to cover expenditures and revenues received as of July 31st. So there on the first slide, you'll see that for revenues received, our major funding that we got was federal funds, and that was $3,651,635. Then it was fee revenue. Those were things like our ECBIs, health certificates, registrations, then surplus, and then third-party reimbursements. So the total amount of revenues received as of July 31st, 2025 was $4,339,067.70. These are federal funds. As of July 31st, we had 97,980. We UV'd that from FY24 into FY25. Currently, as of July in current year, we've received $3,651,635. And so again, total for federal funds that all went into the field strategy was $3,749,615.68. Our next slide is FY25 expenditures at the agency level. You will see that year-to-date expenses as of July 31 for salary and wages was $12,217,982. That made up about 67% of our expenditures. The 16% was operating budget, operating expenses, and that was $2,942,555. The rest, 17%, went to the other object of expenses. So year to date, we've spent $18,204,770. And that leaves us an available balance of $1,874,604. So this is fiscal year 25 expenditures at the strategy level. So year-to-date expense as of July 31, 2025, field operations continues to be our most program that we do spend money on. We've spent so far $12,099,633. That makes up about 66% of our budget in the field. Our next big bucket is central administration, and that's $1,715,064. And then it would be information resources at $1,274,620. So all of the other programs make up about 34% of our budget. Again, what we have spent total is $18,204,770. So the next slide is the proposed budget for FY26. You all should have a copy in front of you. This is kind of hard to see for numbers. Going forward, this is how the budget will be presented. It's everything in those slides all in one. It's a little bit easier to read. So the first box, you have expenses, and it's broken down by object of expense, budget, and actuals. Object of expense or how we report things up to the legislative board. So they're looking at these particular categories and how we spend the money. On the budget section, the original budget is excluding any benefits that we get, and it's equal to what we got in the General Appropriation Act. Okay. And then the adjustments are anything that was given to us in addition to our like supplementals. So for example, for FY26, we got 1.2 for vehicle money. So that was considered an adjustment. And then actuals or program detail, this is how we are proposing that we spend FY 26 budget. This is based on actuals from previous years. So down towards the bottom, we have, the funding summary. This is basically method of finance. This is where the money comes from. So we have about 15,859,193. That's all general revenue. Then 860,000 is fee revenue. So that's again like our fee that we recovered. And 303,459 is for earned federal funds. And then federal funds, 1,766,722. Again, we did get that adjustment of 1.2. So that brings us to a total operating budget for the FY 26 fiscal year, 20,079,374. Again, the next, it's just broken down by the type of funding that we received. And that's it for the FY 26 budget. I can take any questions.
We have a motion to approve the budget status report.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the budget status report as discussed today.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, ma'am. And we'll move to the next item, which is consideration of and action on agency contracts purchases and leases.
Oh, Lord. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so for consideration of possible action items, we have the FY 26 renewals. These are anything that are ongoing, like leases, utilities, anything that's over the 75,000 and over that you guys would have to approve. We have the TAMU project that is part of the Rider 10. We are required to have this agreement with them, and that's a cost of $146,561. That's a not to exceed. And then we have the NADPREP e-permit enhancement. That's Trace First for $117,275. Again, not to exceed. And then we are requesting permission to spend the 1.2 that we were given by the GAA for fleet vehicles. Again, that is not to exceed. And we're currently under negotiations for our internal auditing service, but we do have a cost of $359,000, and that's a not to exceed. The other costs are just our basic ones that we have every single year that go over the 75,000K. And so for total for FY 26, we're asking permission to not to exceed a cost of $3,641,052. That is it.
Okay, any questions? Do about here a motion to approve the contracts.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the contracts, purchases, and leases.
Okay, we have a second. Any questions or further discussions? Not all in favor of approving the motion, signify by saying aye. Opposed by no. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda will be consideration of and possible action on orders related to emission rule violations. Mr. Fahey.
Morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. This is going to be very short. You're welcome. This is we have 7 disciplinary orders that we have presented to you for consideration. I have the rules that were violated here. Predominantly were dairy ID issues. Some of those were paid by the violator, and then the others were defaults that were taken at SOA. And then we also have one penalty that was assessed for entry requirements, and one penalty that was assessed for failing to comply with our TRIC requirements. These have all been either satisfied or there's a default order. And these are the individuals. There's not a whole lot to talk about. There's not a lot of, if there was a default taken at SOA, they did not show up for the hearing. Otherwise, they paid the fine and we're presenting this to you for approval. So with that, we recommend that you adopt the final orders that are presented to you under agenda item 14.
Okay, do I hear a motion? Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the final orders under agenda item 14 as presented today.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve the final orders. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed by no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. And the next item on the agenda will be item 15A. Mr. Janine Knoxville.
Good morning. So this agenda item, we're going to talk about the rules that have been published for notice and comment and or up for consideration for adoption. I'm going to cover the first set, which are all of our rules relating to CWD, and Ms. Maley will actually cover the second part of this agenda item. So we'll get right in. Just as a quick introduction, I'm Janine Cogshaw. I'm the General Counsel for the Animal Health Commission. We presented a pretty comprehensive CWD rule package at the last commission meeting. The primary focus of the rule package was a proposed repeal of the CWD herd certification program. I just want to go over some basics of the program. The CWD herd certification is a voluntary federal program administered by USDA. It covers both native and exotic CWD susceptible species, and the guidelines of the program are published in program standards. Program standards includes two components: a Part A, which governs the standards for the herd certification program participants, and Part B, which is standards that a state must abide by in order to respond to CWD, in order to be a HCP a state that administers the program. As we talked about last commission meeting, these program standards were last updated in May of 2019. So Part A, the ones that apply to the herds that participate in the program, is a surveillance program. Herds in that program that achieve certified status are allowed to move their animals between states without additional approval from USDA. Otherwise, USDA does control all aspects of interstate movement between states for the CWD susceptible cervids. The program itself required participants to conduct regular physical and annual inspections, include 2 forms of ID in each of their animals, included mandatory testing of animals, and had particular facility and testing requirements. So the second part of program standards is a Part B, which required the state that participates to adopt standards that applies to every single herd of CWD susceptible species. So this is, I think, an important part that sometimes gets overlooked when we're discussing the herd certification program, that although there might be just a few herds that participate in the program, the state of Texas is required to respond to all instances of CWD following program standard guidelines in Part B. And so this includes 5-year epidemiological traces, 5-year post-exposure facility quarantines, and we have to have all of our herd plans approved by USDA prior to execution with the herd owner. So the way Texas has handled that is we worked with USDA to get templates approved. Any deviation for those templates, we did have to get prior approval from USDA. This applied whether or not the herd was receiving indemnity funds or not. The herd plan options using program standards and HCP are pretty limited. The options include depopulation, a 5-year quarantine with some selective culling, or a genetic plan with culling. And like I said, USDA will approve all of the herd plan templates or the herd plans used in Texas, even if they're not signatories to the herd plan. So part of our goals with this rule package was we wanted to pair the repeal of the herd certification program with amendments to the CWD rules to provide more sensible regulations. Without Texas participating in the herd certification program, we are no longer bound by the program standards. So as part of that, we wanted to reduce the regulatory burden on producers in instances of CWD positive cases. So we proposed rule language changes that would make hold orders no longer mandatory and would allow our epidemiological staff, Dr. Mundy and her team, to do a case-by-case individual assessment of whether or not the Animal Health Commission is required to do a hold order or quarantine on that premise. So the big shift is to change that from mandatory to discretionary. And again, our focus here at Animal Health Commission is always the protection of animals from these diseases that impact the industry. We also removed the requirement that herd plans and traces must be set at a minimum of 5 years. Our veterinary staff feel like there is a lot of flexibility and there's no need to have some of these traces still be at that 5-year mark. That 36 months makes sense for a lot of the herds that we have seen. And most important part of this is we will allow for more individualized herd plans rather than those USDA only approved templates. Other key components of this rule package was to repeal the CWD surveillance and containment zones in their entirety. Our veterinary staff felt like those were no longer serving the purposes that they were originally intended. And another big component of this is to reduce the regulations on CWD susceptible exotic cervids. So presently in our rules, we require 100% mortality testing of all CWD susceptible exotics in Texas, without regard to whether or not they're behind a high fence, a low fence, how the mortality happened, whether it was hunter harvest, a natural death. We had the unintended consequence of causing a lot of confusion within the exotic industry of not knowing when they have to test. If they find a carcass in their fields, are they still responsible to test? Will they face consequences or penalties from us? After discussing the issue with our epidemiological and veterinary staff, it was determined that having surveillance of 3 mortalities a year with a focus on captive exotics, those behind a high fence or those not intended to leave the premise, actually gives us a really good picture of what CWD within exotic susceptible species looks like throughout the state. I know this is a big departure from where we are going, but we feel that this kind of cuts that middle ground of providing an adequate surveillance without overly burdening landowners and making them feel like they're violating our rules if they don't capture every single mortality that happens on their property. We also amended the proposed amendment that would allow testing through ELISA testing instead of IHC. It's a little bit more cost effective since the owners of the exotic livestock would be the ones footing the bill for this. Go over some of the public comment we received. So our proposed rules were published in the June 6, 2025 issue of the Texas Register with a 30-day comment period. In addition to that, because we knew this rule package was going to directly affect HCP participants in particular, since part of the package is a repeal of that program in its entirety, a copy of the rule proposal and a link to the rule package were sent to every single one of our HCP participants via email. So we wanted to make sure that they weren't just relying on receiving public notice, that they were given direct communication from us that this rule package was being considered. As a result of the comment period, the commission received 10 comments, 7 from individuals, 1 from a group of ranchers and landowners, 1 from the Texas Wildlife Association, and 1 from the National Deer Association. I'm going to go over a summary of those comments. Three individual commenters, the group of ranchers and landowners, and the Texas Deer Association all had very similar comments. They were supportive of elimination of the HCP because it was an ineffective program, but opposed the changes to the proposed rules regarding hold orders and quarantines. The commenters were concerned that the proposed changes add ambiguity to our rules and will negatively impact Texas's Parks and Wildlife Department's ability to place movement restrictions on native species. Next comment, one individual commenter opposed the proposed changes to the rules regarding hold orders, quarantines, and testing requirements. The commenter was in favor of requiring post-mortem testing of all susceptible cervids and continuing with severely limiting movement restrictions as the best practice to stop the spread of CWD. One individual commenter opposed the proposed changes completely and is in favor of maintaining containment zones, post-mortem testing of all susceptible species, continuing the HCP, maintaining the rule to require mandatory hold orders and quarantines. The individual also commented that weakening regulations will damage the state's hunting economy caused by deer farming. One individual who was a participant in HCP opposed the rule because the commenter was concerned that the proposed rule changes would allow the commission to enter their property without permission, require more testing than what is required to move deer through TWIMS, and TWIMS is the Texas Parks and Wildlife tracking database, and believed that the proposal was overreaching. One individual commenter expressed concerns that CWD is a zoonotic disease, fears that these amendments may cause unnecessary conflicts, and hopes that the decision to repeal is by unanimous vote. And the National Deer Association opposed the elimination of the HCP program, was concerned over making hold orders and quarantines optional, and supports 100% mortality testing for exotics. So I want to go over some of the agency's staff's response to these public comments and sort of the reasons why the rules are proposed the way they are. So first, to the opposition to changes to hold orders and quarantine. So staff believes that the changes will give commissions, veterinary epidemiologists the needed discretion to use and adapt hold orders and quarantines to the characteristics of each herd and better align with rules regarding the commission's CW response and epidemiological principles. Most importantly, this is not a disease eradication program. We don't have the tools yet to eradicate CWD. It is a disease control program. And giving our epidemiological staff that discretion to use those tools as hold orders and quarantines based on the analysis of the herds kind of goes back to those core epidemiological principles, that not all of these herds are the same, not all the management principles are the same. And we want to be able to give them the discretion to do what they believe is the best course for that herd based on the newest science and the newest scientific principles regarding CWD containment. Specifically to address the concerns that these our sets of rules, TAHC's set of rules would negatively impact Texas Parks and Wildlife ability to place movement controls. What we do in our rules will not impact Texas Parks and Wildlife's ability to place movement controls on native species. They have their own statutory authority to do so. And their movement restrictions, while they do have some rules that say if a herd is under an Animal Health Commission quarantine or hold order, it's restricted by movement. If the herd itself is a CWD positive herd or suspect herd, meaning there's an epidemiological trace that goes by, Texas Parks and Wildlife rules automatically place that herd under movement control and movement restriction. And that authority is provided by the Texas Admin Code, or 31 Texas Admin Code 65.91F. So there is already a specific statutory authority and a rule adopted by Texas Parks and Wildlife that is not dependent on the action of the Animal Health Commission. So whether or not we elect to put a hold order or quarantine does not affect Parks' ability to place hold order or place movement restrictions on native species. As to the opposition to the change in mortality testing, as I explained earlier, the change to 3 valid tests a year is really designed to add clarity to the rule, reduce the burden on owners of exotic species, and still maintains a really robust surveillance of CWD in those exotic species. And opposition to eliminating HCP, as covered earlier. More of our commenters that provided written comments were in support of eliminating the program for the same reasons we mentioned, that it's really not an effective program and it ties Texas's hands, at least in staff's opinion, that it really constricts our ability to adapt to controlling this disease. The program does also carry a very large administrative regulatory burden to this agency and also to the people that participate, and the people who choose not to participate but are still affected by the rules we have to maintain this program. We feel by withdrawing from this program that gives Texas and the Animal Health Commission the best path forward to maintaining control over CWD, or particularly allowing us to focus more on CWD's impact on our exotic livestock. And staff is not recommending any changes to the rule as proposed based on the written comments. So with that, this is staff's recommendation that the commission adopt this following motion. And I'm also happy to answer any questions. And then, of course, we've got our veterinary staff here as well to answer any questions.
Any questions? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt amendments and repeal to Chapter 32, titled Hearing and Appeal Procedures, and to Chapter 40, titled Chronic Wasting Disease, located in Title 4 of the Texas Administrative Code, with changes as necessary to the proposed text as published in the June 6, 2025 issue of the Texas Register.
Do I hear a second? Second. Do we have a motion and a second? Is there any discussion from the commissioners or questions?
And I believe there's public comment.
Yes, I'll
Okay,
get
perfect.
there. We have 5 people signed up. And I'm going to take you in the order that I received these. First will be Andrew Earl, and let me lay out the procedures here. We're going to, everybody will have 3 minutes to talk, and I assume Amanda's running a timer. Okay. And so you have the floor, sir.
Good morning, Chairman Locke, members of the commission, Director Ginges. My name is Andrew Earl. I'm the Director of Conservation with the Texas Wildlife Association. TWA is an organization of over 8,000 landowners and land stewards across the state of Texas that own, manage, and steward upwards of 35 million acres of our working lands and habitats. TWA and its members appreciate the difficult task of managing the evolving animal pest and disease risks in animal agriculture in Texas. We support the elimination of ineffective and burdensome disease management protocols, including participation in the federal CWD herd certification program. Still, we urge the commission to carefully consider how the changes proposed today will affect the ability of your partner agency, the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, to achieve their parallel mission of curbing disease spread in wild herds. To be clear, I'm not asking the commission to continue to devote resources and staff time to surveilling CWD in captive deer herds. I'm requesting that you simply retain authority to do so under the Texas Agricultural Code, or at the very least delay consideration of this decision given the inflection point that we find ourselves in regarding emerging wildlife health threats in the state. Without this co-joined authority, TPWD's ability to designate known epi-linked and out of compliance captive permittees as non-movement qualified is weakened. Furthermore, we believe making the issuing of hold orders on CWD positive facilities optional for the Animal Health Commission as an unnecessary and irresponsible change that puts the native and exotic wildlife of our state at risk. This should remain mandatory. To be clear, this concern extends beyond CWD. The reemerging threat of New World screwworm in Texas will potentially require restrictions on the movement of livestock in parts of the state. In removing the above authority, the Animal Health Commission threatens to foster inequity in the treatment of various sectors of animal agriculture under the law. Once more, TWA encourages this commission to carefully consider how today's proposal will impact the continuity and effectiveness in pest and disease surveillance protocols throughout the state. Thank you for your consideration of these comments.
Thank you very much. Next will be Jenny Sanders.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Dr. Dinges. My name is Jenny Sanders from Apple Springs, Texas, behind the Pine Curtain of East Texas. I'm a small acreage landowner, a hunter, and the mother of 2 boys who love the outdoors and are learning to appreciate and participate in our hunting heritage. I work as an independent contractor in the wildlife conservation and policy space, but I'm here to speak to you representing myself today. I'm here to respectfully ask that the commission pump the brakes specifically on the amendments related to hold orders and quarantines. While I understand and appreciate the intent to create flexibility, I would contend that the system is already quite flexible. These proposed changes will result in confusion and undermine responsible CWD mitigation measures at a time when we have multiple disease threats affecting the wildlife and livestock interface. I'm a new face to this commission, but I've worked actively over the last 10+ years as a part of a coalition of landowners, hunters, and conservationists seeking prudent regulation of the captive deer industry as it relates to CWD. You have always been a great partner with TPWD and a stalwart force in this effort. It is clear that Texas would not have a CWD problem outside of the movement and of the concentration and movement of captive deer outside of those areas in the Trans-Pecos and the Panhandle. Landowners in 151 counties across the state are now facing the threat of CWD on their fence line due to the movement of captive deer from positive deer breeding facilities. There's no greater threat to the $9.6 billion deer hunting economy in Texas than the movement of captive deer. And now, with New World screwworm on our doorstep, the stakes are even higher. With the failure of Senate Bill 2846 in the 89th legislature, which would have granted TPWD statutory authority to issue hold orders and quarantines, it makes the timing of this proposal extremely concerning. If Texas Animal Health Commission loosens its requirements now without appropriate and necessary authority being granted to Parks and Wildlife, it will undermine currently effective mitigation strategies for CWD management at the very moment we need steadfastness. Texas needs TPWD and Texas Animal Health Commission working together in lockstep to protect our livestock and wildlife and the critical economies that they support. Please do not fracture this partnership. It is imperative that we face the looming threat of New World screwworms and continue to address CWD with the united front. I urge you to delay this proposed rule change, maintain the existing framework, and ensure that Texas wildlife and livestock interests remain aligned in the fight against this disease of these diseases. Thank you for your time and your leadership.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders. Next will be Matt Wagner.
Greetings, Chairman Locke and Commission members. I am Matt Wagner, the Executive Director of the Texas Chapter of the Wildlife Society. At almost 1,000 members, we are the largest chapter of the Wildlife Society, an international organization formed in 1937. We are concerned with the current CWD proposal to make hold orders optional rather than mandatory for CWD positive deer breeding facilities. For over a decade, you have worked cooperatively with Texas Parks and Wildlife in the co-management of CWD in captive cervid facilities. This relationship has been critical in protecting our wild deer, landowner property values, and a $9.6 billion hunting economy. Texas Parks and Wildlife's current movement restrictions comply with this commission's hold orders. We ask you to delay on this proposal so that more details can be provided and which agency has full authority to efficiently and effectively manage this disease. Senate Bill 2846 regarding the transfer of CWD authority from the Animal Health Commission to Parks and Wildlife would have provided this clarity, but it failed to pass. Incorporating language from that bill into your rule proposal would provide much needed clarity on specific authorities for quarantines, reporting duties, and penalties for violation. This agency has a mandate to protect exotic livestock from diseases. And as you know, there are several exotics that are CWD susceptible, including elk, red deer, and sika. These species are regularly commingled with native whitetails so that the disease transmission is readily possible. To date, there have been nearly 20 CWD positive cases in elk and red deer. Some would have us believe that CWD is no big deal and ignore the impacts of accelerating its spread to new parts of the state. 18 other states and Canada are following standard disease protocols in dealing with CWD. Ignoring the problem leads to CWD endemic areas such as Colorado and Wisconsin, where over 50% of the deer in these areas have CWD. For more detail on that, please listen to Senator Nichols' comments during the Senate Finance Committee on February 11th. He described what happens when CWD is left unmanaged, as in Colorado. Deer and elk herds become decimated. Thank you for this opportunity to comment.
Thank you very much, sir. Next on the list is Walter Martin.
May I pass out first? Which probably more than, it's one page per. Chairman Locke and Commissioners, Executive Director Dingus. For the record, my name is Walter Martin. I'm speaking on behalf of my family's Westwind Ranch in Zavala County. Our ranch is in proximity to 3 CWD positive breeding facilities. Ironically, were mentioned earlier on the slides regarding CWD. In full transparency, my signature is 1 of 10 on the letter that you were just distributed to. And was sent to the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker of the House, senators, representatives, and copied to Dr. Dingus and Dr. Yaskowitz during the 2025 legislative session. We asked each official to intervene regarding the CWD proposed rule changes, making hold orders and quarantines optional. Texas Parks and Wildlife's current movement restrictions and captive herd management rely on Texas Animal Health Commission's issued hold orders. The collaboration between the 2 agencies and the current CWD rules have mitigated the potential outbreak of CWD in our native deer population. Since the letter, 2 major events have occurred that bring more concerns regarding the proposed rule changes. First, Texas Parks and Wildlife's ghost deer investigation. Deer breeders, including directors of the Texas Deer Association, are illegally moving and smuggling deer. They are also committing felonies under the current CWD rules and regulations. What could happen if the proposed rule changes are adopted? Although proposed with good intentions, the ambiguity the rule changes create allows for more egregious behavior that could cause a CWD crisis. Second, the new world screwworm. The screwworm will be in South Texas sooner than originally reported. Secretary Rowland, additionally, Governor Abbott's directive to form a new world screwworm response team created jointly between Texas Parks and Wildlife and the Texas Animal Health Commission. This team puts the state's assets to additional use. I commend Texas Animal Health Commission and Texas Parks and Wildlife's proactive approach to the screwworm threat. It is for these reasons today I'm asking Texas Animal Health Commission to table all CWD proposed rule changes until the screwworm threat is eradicated. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Walter. Next, Mr. Mitch Lockwood. Mitch, good to have you back among us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Dr. Dinges, Amanda, good to see y'all again. My name is Mitch Lockwood. I'm a ranch manager in Gillespie and Kerr counties. About 2.5 years ago, I retired from Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, where I enjoyed, for the last 15 years of my career, I enjoyed the privilege of being the director of the Big Game Program. As you can imagine, in that role, I found myself neck deep in the most contentious of issues on a regular basis, not the least of which was chronic wasting disease. And when working through those issues, I always appreciated this very, very strong relationship and partnership that we had with Texas Parks and Wildlife and Texas Animal Health Commission. I appreciated those relationships on a professional and personal level. These are relationships that really began to develop and strengthen back under the leadership of Dr. Bob Hillman, then continued under Dr. D. Ellis, Dr. Andy Schwartz, and now under Dr. Dinges. Chairman Locke, you and I found ourselves together in a foxhole more than once when dealing with these very contentious issues, and always appreciated your leadership as we waded our way through them. It's this partnership that we have to thank for the fact that this disease has been contained as well as it has been in this state. Sure, this disease has spread through many deer breeding facilities. No doubt about it. We can spend the rest of the day talking about how that happened. But I've got colleagues from around this country who scratch their heads and continually ask us, how are y'all keeping it contained within that facility? And I assure you that could not have been done without this partnership between these two agencies. I applaud your staff for developing this proposal to help free up the resources, or free up many resources to help combat many, many other very important issues that this agency faces, and protecting not just the livestock resources, but the wildlife resources throughout this state as well. But I do have a concern, and it has to do with what I see as an erosion of that relationship between the two agencies, an erosion that didn't just start today, and it didn't start with this agency. So please don't misunderstand my comment there. But it's an erosion that this state cannot afford to occur at this time, especially when we do have New World screwworm knocking on our door, as well as a lot of other important issues. Now, I do think that the bulk of this proposal, what I see as the bulk of this proposal in getting out from under the herd certification program, is a very important step forward to help free up resources of your staff and your agency. And it's one that is overdue, and I applaud staff for developing that proposal, and I hope this commission does adopt that. But keep in mind that the issuance of hold orders and quarantines are not a result of that program, the herd certification program. There's still a legislative responsibility, a mandate of this agency to take the lead role in disease management when you have diseases that affect both wildlife and livestock in the state. And part of that disease management approach is to issue those quarantines and hold orders. But as I wrap up my comments, I want to emphasize that you continue to take advantage, and take more advantage of the partnership that you have with Texas Parks and Wildlife to help administer those herd plans that come along with those hold orders and quarantines like we used to do. There's resources there that can be utilized, and I encourage you to take advantage of those. But they do, while they can develop, issue not movement qualified status for captive deer facilities, as Ms. Coxell mentioned, that is limited. There are situations when that cannot be issued, and there are large gaps as a result that will undoubtedly allow this disease to leak out of facilities if this proposal in its entirety were adopted by this commission. So I urge this commission to exercise your authority, but also to carry out the responsibility in taking that lead role, but leaning on your partners at Texas Parks and Wildlife to help free up your resources to deal with many, many other very important issues that your staff have to face. I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mitch. Okay, any comments or questions?
I'm gonna unfortunately have to jump back in real quick. So the motion that I have up on the screen is actually an artifact from the last meeting. So I think we might have to have a new motion. The motion that would be on the table today is to adopt the proposed rules that were already published. This is all completely my fault. I put up the recommended motion from last meeting by mistake.
It says adopt here, that's what I read.
Adopt the following motion, but the motion should be to adopt the proposed rules, the rules that were published.
That's the language that's in the.
Okay, then the slide is incorrect, sorry.
Correct.
The slide is wrong, what you said is correct. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure it was abundantly clear before we move past this. Thank you.
I'm gonna clarify for me, I've heard some different words used, for the hold orders, and one is optional and the other discretionary. What is the difference?
So functionally, there's no difference. So right now we have the language in our rules is shall. So if we have a positive or a suspect, doesn't matter what species it is, we are required by the rules that have been adopted by this commission to issue a hold order. If it's in the process of disease investigation, or if it's a confirmed positive, then issue a quarantine. And under our rules, the only way those hold orders or quarantines are lifted is either the completion of the disease investigation in the context of a hold order, or if the herd enters a herd plan, then we can adjust the quarantine on the terms of the herd plan. The reason I say discretionary is so changing it from a shall issue as a mandatory language to may issue. So this gives our veterinary staff the option to issue hold orders and quarantines in any circumstance. So it won't prevent, this is not an elimination of hold orders and quarantines by any means. This just gives our staff the ability to decide whether or not a hold order or quarantine is needed for that herd when a suspect comes across their desk or a confirmed positive comes across their desk. This does not mean that the Animal Health Commission will no longer issue quarantines and hold orders. If the epidemiological staff feels like there is no need for the Animal Health Commission to issue a hold order or quarantine, they will decline to do that. So that's the discretion part, where it's no longer the rules dictate the actions. It's actually the veterinary staff will dictate the actions that the Animal Health Commission takes.
Thank you. Jenny, following the standards is mandatory 5 year, wouldn't it?
Yes, sir. And so there also will add some flexibility to our epidemiological staff to determine how long a trace should be based on the herd dynamics, and no longer requires a minimum of 5 years. So a lot of times when we do these, we have done traces before. Sometimes they spider web out. The general consensus in CWD community is that 5 years is no longer, 60-month trace is no longer really what should happen in any way. We're now looking at more 36-month trace. And so it gives them flexibility to determine the length of that trace.
Any more questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Oppose. Commissioner Evans.
No. Okay. Since we do have a no vote, I will now do a roll call vote. Evans,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
Jordan, is not here. Klein,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Leathers,
Yes.
Oates,
Yes.
Osterkamp,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Trotter,
Yes.
Sturgis,
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. Okay, the motion, I declare the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is item 16, consideration of and possible action on proposed rules.
We've actually got 15B, which is an adoption, before we get to 16. It's unrelated to CWD, so my presentations are not CWD related in case we've got people that want to skedaddle. Not CWD related. Okay, so item 15B is an adoption of rules proposed last time under Chapter 51. These were AZA movement requirements. The proposed amendments clarified one of 3 forms of acceptable identifications for ratites entering Texas, and then the bulk of the changes were under this AZA requirement, which was to provide simplified entry requirements for exotic fowl, excluding ratites, moving between AZA accredited facilities. So it's AZA facility to AZA facility, only in between those 2 accreditations. Allowed entry without PT testing or AI testing, and without an entry permit. We published the proposed rules, in the June 6th, 2025 issue of the Texas Register for 30-day comment window. We received, one comment from Zoo Miami. The commenter stated that, they were in support of our proposal, that streamlined movements between the facilities. Currently, our requirements are extremely challenging for AZA facilities. The commenter also noted the amendment will simplify the transfers of these low-risk birds, but they're also high conservation value birds. So with that, staff recommends not the motion that's on the screen. This is the same issue that Janine just ran into, but we would recommend adoption of the rules as published in the register.
All right, any questions? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the amendments to Chapter 51 titled Entry Requirements located in Title 4 of the Texas Administration Code with changes as necessary to the proposed text as published in the June 6, 2025 issue of the Texas Register. 15, text reg 3311.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Do we have a motion and a second to adopt the amendments to Chapter 51? Is there any further discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Opposed by no. The motion passes unanimously. Now we move to another item, 16.
16 is consideration of and possible action on proposed rules. So the first one has kind of been previewed for you by Dr. Dinges and Dr. Monday. It's a proposal for changes to our trichomoniasis chapter. These changes are a result of the TRIC working group, which met July 10th. To review the effectiveness of the current TRIC program. The group made 2 recommendations to update the program rules. The first to more accurately reflect testing science and how results are reported. And then the second to update some of the testing requirements for bulls that have been inside of a herd 1 year after release of quarantine. So the proposed amendments. The first one is to update test result language. We're going to change, our proposal is to change it from negative result to not detected. Again, this more accurately reflects how test results are received at the lab. And then the second proposal from the TRIC working group was to eliminate testing requirements for bulls that are a part of a herd 1 year after the date the hold order or quarantine order on the herd was released. This is a result of the group found that no additional surveillance is needed. We've got plenty of testing data. I think Dr. Monday reported on the number of testing that we're receiving. And currently that test on the bulls is administratively burdened to our commission staff. So the group decided that the program is sufficient enough to eliminate that 1 year requirement. With that, staff recommends the following motion.
Do I hear a motion? Chapter 38, TRIC.
Mr. Chairman, I move that propose the amendments and repeal of Chapter 38, Title 50 notice located in Title 4 of the Texas Administration Code with changes as necessary to proposed text. I further move that notice of the proposed amendments be published in the Texas Register for the 30-day comment period.
Okay, have a second?
Second.
Have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the proposal of amendment to Chapter 38. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by no. That motion passes unanimously. The next item will be item 16B. Reportable and actionable diseases.
Okay, 16B is a group of changes to Chapter 45, which is our reportable and actionable disease list. Chapter 51, which is our entry requirements in chapter 57. This change came out of concern over egg drop syndrome virus, which is an infectious disease caused by an atadenovirus, which can affect many species of poultry and birds. The clinical signs largely show up in egg production. So you're looking for thin-shelled, soft-shelled, shellless eggs, and rapid extended loss in egg production. Currently, there's no treatments for EDS, and a vaccine use is limited and poses its own risk to Texas poultry. So we took a look at our entry requirements and our reportable disease list, and we are proposing amendments to chapter 45 to add egg drop syndrome virus to our list of reportable and actionable diseases, because early detection and reporting are critical to prevention. We are also proposing amendments to chapter 51 in our poultry requirements to add a new requirement for poultry coming in from areas affected by egg drop syndrome. So the requirement would be birds from affected states or birds that have been vaccinated against EDS must submit a written request prior to entry and obtain specific written authorization. While we were updating 51 to reflect the changes for egg drop syndrome, we also thought it was a good time to consolidate some of our entry requirements that are separated across chapters. The way our rules currently function, the majority of our entry requirements are in chapter 51, which is our entry requirement chapter. But we've got a couple of outliers, one of them being in chapter 57, our poultry rule. So we have consolidated the entry requirements that are in our chapter 57 into the chapter 51 for readability, ease of use, and user friendliness. We've also reorganized some of our entry requirements to make them easier to follow in kind of a list format rather than the bulky paragraphs. And then finally, in chapter 57, as I mentioned, we're removing the interstate movement requirements there and moving them under chapter 51. We're renumbering some of the paragraphs, and we're also clarifying some of the proven available methods for carcass disposal. Currently, our rules list only a few, and so we wanted to make sure that our readers understood that the purpose behind disposal methods are to facilitate decomposition of the carcass and to ensure that there's no additional spread or exposure of the disease. And so we've added a couple different methods that are acceptable under scientific procedures. So staff recommends the following motion.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to propose the amendment to chapter 45 titled Reportable and Actionable Diseases, chapter 51 titled Entry Requirements, and chapter 57 titled Poultry. Located in title 4 protected benefit fund. If changes are necessary to the proposed text, I further move to the notice of the proposed amendment be published in the Texas Register with a 30-day comment period.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Of a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by no. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. The next item will be a presentation of awards and recognition, and I have not been told of any. We do have one. Okay. Oh. Okay. I didn't read the script. You want me to read this? Okay. We would like to recognize William Bill Curry on his retirement for August 31st, 2025. Bill was unable to attend the meeting today. However, we'd like to recognize him for his exceptional service to our industry. Bill has served in the agricultural industry, farming and ranching since 1972. Bill started his career with TAHC in 2012 as an inspector and was located in Mount Pleasant, Texas, working his way diligently through the tasks of being an inspector for our agency, ultimately fulfilling the role of manager in 2015. In 2017, the office moved to Sulphur Springs, and Bill has continued to serve in the role of region manager since that time. Bill's dedication to animal disease prevention in the northeast portion of the state has been excellent, and we are incredibly grateful for his service. So we congratulate Bill Curry. Let's give him a Now, the next item is public comments. I've not been told of anyone signing up to speak there. And the next item is,
What several people right under Jenny Sanders, at least there was 3 people signed up to speak.
There were 5 and he called them all during the,
I remember being signed up. I signed.
Are you signed up?
Signed up.
did you bring me a card?
No, I was never in the right part. So I was just saying,
I'll get you a card.
I apologize. I just thought, they said sign your name here, so that's what I did. I apologize. Fine, no. Sorry. No problem. That's not all. I just signed.
One's a sign-in sheet and one is a comment card. That's okay.
I'm ready to go ahead and come up. Still new to all these rules and procedures, and I'm not as fast a learner as I should be. I'm Allison Mig with Blue Creek Whitetails. I've come before y'all before in the past. I just wanted to, ask this commission to serve as a voice of reason. I'm hoping that you will join me in asking for better clarity with the USDA regarding chronic wasting disease and the regulations that are impacting small deer farmer operations like myself in South Texas and across Texas. We need to make it easier for compliance to be available, a pathway, a template, and good business to stay viable, while also assuring the public that the best disease strategies are being applied. This is my fear with all of a sudden letting one agency that it's not their wheelhouse conduct all the disease management strategies, because I do acknowledge that CWD is real and that livestock is treated differently than animals that are not in captivity and are at their own, that rely on themselves, not me as the steward of these animals. So by clarifying what the difference is between a wild native species and a farm native species, it's essential in defining a livestock practices. This is where I think the distinction will alleviate confusion and help direct proper governance to ensure the health and safety of the animals and the public. Farm deer should be strictly governed by agencies that understand farming. Farm deer, like any livestock, need educated and experienced governance that understands agricultural regulations and their health, their breeding, and their environment. Farm deer hold economic value, which makes it necessary to stay in compliance with welfare and biosecurity regulations as deer are held in captivity, and that restricts all influence of their natural movement. Wild deer depend on the process, like I said before, and they're all already managed under wildlife conservation laws as a public resource. This highlights a distinct regulatory approach for farm and wild deer. We need to be under the right agencies. This has been the whole little battle, and I understand USDA is working on better language. They know things went out quickly. Just like anything, you've got an emergency, you act, and then you kind of go back and say, okay, we overreact, and then you pull back and try to make it work like they're learning. This is the reportable disease. It is not a risk to humans. There's no scientific evidence at this time that humans are at risk. But by being a monitored disease, it'll be able to be reported on quickly, but you don't have to report something in 24 hours, and which will make the public more prone to want to test their own harvest. It just, without taking the fear mongering and the stigma away. So I'm asking y'all to help me work with the USDA. I think this is going to be longer than just this approach, turning it over to Parks and Wildlife. I would like everybody to get some good ideas in the room and some good approaches and work with, you know, we've got a whole new administration and Secretary Rollins has been very, very, she loves Texas. So, I mean, all I'm asking is somebody to put me in touch with the right people with the USDA in Texas. It would help me greatly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, there being no further business, I declare this meeting adjourned.